I was sitting in my living room, folding Marcus's old shirts that I still couldn't bring myself to donate when my phone rang. It was Jasmine, my daughter-in-law. Her voice sounded different that day, cold, almost robotic, as she said, "Marion, Deshaun and I are moving to Atlanta tomorrow. I already sold your brownstone in Harlem and that Cadillac Marcus left you. We needed the money. Bye." And just like that, she hung up. 43 years I'd known this girl. 43 years since my son Marcus brought her home from Howard University, his eyes shining like she was the answer to every prayer I'd ever prayed. And this was how it ended? A 2-minute phone call where she stripped me of everything my boy had left behind? But here's what Jasmine didn't know. I took a deep breath, set down Marcus's favorite Duke Ellington t-shirt, and I smiled, because there was something my dear daughter-in-law had no idea about. My name is Marion Eloise Hayes. I'm 73 years old. I raised my son in a 2-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn when being a single black mother meant the world expected you to fail. I worked double shifts at Mount Sinai Hospital for 30 years, putting Marcus through college while the other nurses whispered about that woman who thinks her son's gonna be somebody. Well, my son became somebody. He became a real estate investor who owned half of Bed-Stuy before it got fancy. But I didn't know that until 6 months after he died. Marcus passed away from a heart attack while he was reviewing property documents at his office. He was only 48 years old. The doctors said it was genetic, that his father probably had the same weak heart that took him before Marcus was even born. That morning, Marcus had called me like he did every Sunday. "Ma, you take your pressure medication?" He'd ask like I was the child and he was the parent. Those were his last words to me. Since then, Jasmine had been around more, or so I thought. She'd come by 3 times a week with expensive takeout from restaurants in Manhattan, restaurants I never heard of. She'd help me sort through Marcus's things, or at least that's what she called it. Now I understand she was searching for documents, for bank statements, for anything that would tell her where the money was. She even suggested I see a doctor for a full evaluation. "Marion, you're not getting any younger," she'd say, with that smile I thought was love, but now I see was calculation. "We need to make sure you're competent to handle your affairs." Competent, that's what she called it. The brownstone had been Marcus's first purchase when he started making real money. He bought it in 2005 when Harlem was still Harlem, before the yoga studios and organic juice bars. "Ma, one day this whole neighborhood's gonna be worth millions," he told me. "I'm buying this for you, put it in your name." But I've been too proud, too scared of owing my son anything. So he put it in some company name I didn't even understand. And that Cadillac Escalade, the champagne-colored one with the cream leather seats, Marcus had saved up for 2 years to buy it for me when I retired from the hospital. He'd put a big red bow on it and parked it outside my apartment building on my 70th birthday. The whole block came out to celebrate. Mrs. Washington from 4C had cried, saying that's how a son should treat his mama. Jasmine knew what that car meant to me. Every Sunday, I'd wash it in the same spot Marcus used to park his first car, a beat-up Honda Civic he'd driven through college. His scent still lingered in that Cadillac. Dracar Noir cologne and peppermint Altoids. It was all I had left of my baby. When Jasmine hung up that phone, I sat there in my apartment on that old floral couch I'd had since 1987. I was surrounded by Marcus's things, his basketball trophies from high school, his Howard University diploma, photos of him at every age, from that bald-headed baby to the handsome man in an Armani suit at his last birthday party. And for the first time since his funeral, I didn't cry. Something strange happened inside me, a calm I hadn't felt in 6 months. Because in that moment, sitting in my living room with the afternoon sun coming through those dusty blinds, I remembered something I had completely forgotten. 3 days before Marcus died, He came to my apartment with a manila envelope. "Ma, put this in your bedroom closet," he said, kissing my forehead like he always did. "If something happens to me, and I'm not saying it will, but if it does, wait a little while before you open it. Wait until you feel strong enough. You'll know when." I tucked it behind my hat boxes without much thought. After the funeral, with all the grief and the arrangements, and Jasmine crying so loud at the service that they had to give her a sedation, I simply forgot. But that envelope was waiting for me, right there in my closet, behind the church hats I had collected for 40 years. The nurse at the clinic called my name. Yes, Jasmine had even scheduled me a doctor's appointment, saying I looked tired and needed to be checked out. The doctor examined me, said my pressure was a little high, but whose isn't at 73, Mrs. Hayes? And that I should cut back on salt and take walks around the block. I nodded and smiled, but my mind was somewhere else. I was thinking about that envelope, about the coldness in Jasmine's voice, about how Deshaun, that smooth-talking car salesman who used to be Marcus's friend back in the day, was probably behind all of this. See, I never trusted Deshaun. He was the kind of man who showed up at Marcus's funeral in a purple suit and alligator shoes, hugging on Jasmine a little too long, whispering in her ear while my son wasn't even cold in the ground yet. I took the M15 bus back to my apartment. I didn't have a car anymore, according to Jasmine. But as I rolled that bus through Harlem, watching the people rush by, the young white couples pushing expensive strollers, the old black folks who remember when this was our neighborhood, I couldn't help but smile. My daughter-in-law thought she had left me with nothing. She thought I was just another elderly black woman the world could push around, take advantage of, discard like trash. But what she didn't know was that Marcus, my beautiful, brilliant baby boy, had always been the type to plan ahead. Even when he was 10 years old, he'd save half his allowance just in case, Ma. The bus stopped at 135th Street. I got off slowly, letting the younger folks rush past me. I wasn't in a hurry. I had all the time in the world now. When I got home, I walked straight to my bedroom. I opened that closet, the one that still smelled like the mothballs I'd been using since the 90s, and I moved those hat boxes aside. Purple one from my sister's wedding, navy blue from Marcus's college graduation, black one from his funeral. And there it was, that manila envelope with my name written in Marcus's handwriting. His handwriting had always been beautiful, like a school teacher's, neat and precise. My hands trembled as I picked it up. I could feel there were documents inside, thick ones too. Marcus had written across the front, "For Ma, when you're ready." I sat on my bed, the same bed I'd had since Marcus was a teenager, the one he'd saved up his basketball camp money to buy me from that furniture store in Flatbush Avenue. It was getting dark outside. The sounds of Harlem filtered through my window. Car horns, somebody's music, Mrs. Washington yelling at her grandkids to come inside. Normal sounds. Life going on like always. But nothing was gonna be normal after I opened this envelope. I took a deep breath, sent up a little prayer to Marcus, and tore it open. What I found inside changed everything. What I found in that envelope took my breath away in a way that 6 months of grief hadn't managed to do. There were legal documents, property deeds, stock certificates, and a handwritten letter from Marcus. My baby's handwriting blurred as tears filled my eyes, but I blinked them away. I needed to see this clearly. "Dear Ma," the letter began, and I could hear his voice as clearly as if he were sitting right next to me on this bed. "If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And I'm so sorry, Ma. Sorry I didn't get more time. Sorry I won't be there to take care of you the way you took care of me all those years when it was just us against the world. But Ma, I need you to know something. All those nights you worked double shifts at the hospital, all those times you wore the same coat for 5 winters so I could have new sneakers, all those sacrifices you made, I never forgot. Not for one single day. I took every lesson you taught me about saving, about investing, about building something that lasts. And Ma, I built something. I built it for us, for you. We don't just have the Harlem brownstone. We have 12 other properties across Brooklyn, Harlem, and the Bronx. We own the building where Jasmine and I live. The whole building, Ma. 6 stories, 12 units. We have shares in 3 companies that are worth more than I ever told anyone. You are rich, Ma. You always were rich in the ways that mattered, but now you're rich on paper, too. Everything is in a company I created called Marion's Legacy LLC. You are the sole owner. You always were. I never told you because I didn't want you to worry. I didn't want you to think differently about our life or about yourself. You raised me to value hard work over money, character over cash. Those lessons made me who I am. I need you to know something else. I never told Jasmine the full extent of what we have. I put the brownstone and the Cadillac in separate, smaller company names that she knows about. But the rest, the real wealth, that's hidden in Marion's Legacy LLC, and only you and my lawyer, Mr. Jerome Richardson, know about it. I did this because, this is hard to write, I don't fully trust Jasmine. I love her, but I see things. The way she looks at money, the way she talks about my friends who don't have as much, the way she smiled when Mrs. Washington's son lost his job. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if I'm right, this envelope will protect you. Call Mr. Richardson. He's at 212-555-0147. He's expecting you to reach out whenever you're ready. He'll explain everything and help you take control of what's rightfully yours. I love you, Ma. I always did. Every single day of my life, I thanked God for giving me a mother like you. Take care of yourself. And Ma, don't let nobody treat you like you're less than the queen you are. Love forever. Your Marcus. I had to set the letter down. My hands were shaking so hard the paper was rattling. I stood up, walked to the window, looked out at Harlem, at my Harlem, apparently, and I let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. My son, my brilliant, protective, beautiful son, had been taking care of me even from beyond the grave. I went through the documents with trembling fingers. There were deeds to properties I'd walked past 1,000 times. That renovated brownstone on Strivers Row? Mine. The apartment building on Malcolm X Boulevard where my friend from church lived? Mine. A small commercial building in Bed-Stuy that housed a soul food restaurant, a barbershop, and a bookstore? Mine. There were bank statements for accounts I never knew existed. Numbers that seemed impossible. Marcus had been a city bus driver for 10 years before he went into real estate. How had he turned that into this? But then I found his investment journals, years of careful notes about properties he'd bought low during the 2008 crisis, about renovations he'd done himself, about tenants he'd helped, and who had helped him in return. My son hadn't gotten lucky. He'd been strategic, patient, and smart. And he'd kept it all secret to protect me. The building where Jasmine lived, the luxury condo in Brooklyn Heights with the doorman and the gym and the rooftop terrace, Marcus had bought the entire building in 2012 for $1.2 million. According to the most recent appraisal in the envelope, it was now worth $8 million. Jasmine had been living in my building, parking in my garage, and hosting her little wine nights in my penthouse. And she had no idea. I sat back down on the bed, and did something I hadn't done in months. I laughed. I laughed until my sides hurt, until Mrs. Washington knocked on the wall asking if I was okay, until the tears running down my face weren't from grief anymore, but from the absolute absurdity of it all. My daughter-in-law had robbed me, kicked me out of my own properties, talked to me like I was a burden, and all to fund a new life with Deshaun, a man who still owed Marcus $15,000 from a business investment that never materialized. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked around my little apartment, touching Marcus's things with new eyes. This wasn't the home of a woman with nothing. This was the home of a woman who chose simplicity, who raised a son to value character over comfort. But that didn't mean I had to stay simple. Not anymore. Not when my daughter-in-law had decided to play games with my life. I pulled out the business card Marcus had paper-clipped to the documents. Jerome Richardson, attorney at law. The address was in Midtown Manhattan, one of those buildings with marble lobbies and elevator operators in uniforms. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow I would call Mr. Jerome Richardson. Tomorrow I would begin to understand the full extent of what Marcus had built. Tomorrow I would start to take back what was mine. But tonight I sat in Marcus's old room. I'd kept it exactly as it was. His Duke Ellington poster still on the wall, his bookshelf full of James Baldwin and Ta-Nehisi Coates. And I talked to him. Baby, I said to the darkness, I don't know what you saw in that girl, but I know what you saw in me. You saw a fighter. You saw a woman who never backed down from what was right. The street light outside cast shadows across his high school basketball jersey, hanging on the wall. Number 23, just like Jordan. And that's what I'm going to be now, Marcus. I'm going to fight. Not with anger, not with hate, but with wisdom. I'm going to teach that girl something she should have learned a long time ago. I pulled out my old photo album, the one with pictures from when Marcus was a baby. There was one of us on his first birthday, me in my nurse's uniform, him with chocolate cake all over his face, both of us grinning like we'd won the lottery. We didn't have money then, but we had everything. Jasmine is about to learn the difference, I said to that photo. Jasmine is about to learn the difference between having money and having wealth, between being rich and being blessed. My phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. This is Deshaun. Jasmine told me about the properties. Don't make this difficult, Marion. We have lawyers too. I stared at that message for a long moment. Then I smiled, turned off my phone, and went to bed. Let them think they'd won. Let them pack their bags for Atlanta. Let them celebrate their smart business moves. Because tomorrow, when I call Mr. Jerome Richardson, the real game was going to begin. And this time, I was holding all the cards. I woke up at 5:47 a.m. Same time I'd been waking up for 30 years of nursing shifts. Some habits your body never forgets, even when you don't need them anymore. I made myself a pot of coffee, the strong kind Marcus used to say could wake the dead, and I sat at my kitchen table with Mr. Richardson's business card in front of me. The office didn't open until 9 a.m., but I was ready at 6. I took my time getting dressed. I put on my burgundy church dress, the one with the pearl buttons that Marcus had bought me for Mother's Day 5 years ago. I fixed my silver hair in the same neat bun I'd worn to work for 3 decades. I put on my good earrings, the gold hoops my mother had given me before she passed. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a helpless old woman. I saw Marion Eloise Hayes, the woman who had raised a brilliant son by herself, the woman who had worked double shifts and still made it to every parent-teacher conference, the woman who had survived in a world that told Black women we were supposed to be invisible. I was anything but invisible now. At exactly 9:01 a.m., I dialed Mr. Richardson's number. A professional-sounding young woman answered. Richardson and Associates, how may I direct your call? This is Marion Hayes. I need to speak with Mr. Richardson about my son, Marcus Hayes. There was a pause, then her voice changed, became warmer, more personal. Mrs. Hayes, Mr. Richardson has been waiting for your call. Can you hold for just one moment? 30 seconds later, a deep voice came on the line. Mrs. Hayes, Jerome Richardson here. First, let me say how deeply sorry I am for your loss. Marcus was not just a client. He was a friend, one of the finest men I've ever known. My throat tightened. Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Please, call me Jerome. Marcus talked about you constantly, you know. Every meeting we had, he'd start with, "My ma always said," or "My ma taught me." You raised an exceptional man, Mrs. Hayes. He was my whole world. I know, and he knew it too. That's why he built all of this, for you. Jerome's voice became more businesslike. Mrs. Hayes, I assume you found the envelope? Last night. I'm still trying to process it all. I can only imagine. Listen, this is too important to discuss over the phone. Can you come to my office today? I'll clear my entire afternoon. We need to go through everything, and we need to move quickly. Why quickly? Because your daughter-in-law has already started making moves. She contacted 3 different real estate attorneys yesterday trying to find out who owns the property she's already sold. She's going to discover the sales were fraudulent very soon, and when she does, things are going to get complicated. My heart started beating faster. What do you mean the sales were fraudulent? Mrs. Hayes, Jasmine didn't have the legal authority to sell anything. She forged documents. What she did is called fraud, and it's a federal crime. The Harlem brownstone, still legally yours. The Cadillac, still registered under Marion's Legacy LLC. The buyers are going to want their money back, and Jasmine is going to be in serious legal trouble. How soon can I be there? How's 11 a.m.? I'll be there. I took the subway to Midtown, the 2 train to Times Square, then the shuttle to Grand Central, and then I walked the 6 blocks to his office. I could have taken a cab. I guess I could have taken a whole limousine if I wanted, but I needed the time to think, to prepare myself. Richardson and Associates was on the 34th floor of a building with so much marble and brass, it looked like a museum. The elevator operator was a young black man who smiled at me and said, "Good morning, ma'am. Which floor?" 34, please. Ah, Mr. Richardson's office. He's a good man. My sister works as a paralegal there, says he treats his staff like family. Marcus would have liked that detail. The office itself was all dark wood and leather furniture, but it wasn't cold. There were African art pieces on the walls, photos of Jerome with what looked like his family, and a whole shelf of books about Black history and civil rights. Jerome Richardson stood up when I entered. He was a tall man, maybe 60 years old, with gray at his temples and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He came around his desk and shook my hand with both of his. "Mrs. Hayes, thank you for coming. Please, sit." He gestured to a comfortable chair across from his desk, then sat down himself. Between us was a folder easily 3 inches thick. "That's all Marcus's?" I asked. "This is your life now, Mrs. Hayes. Everything your son built, everything he protected, everything he wanted you to have." Jerome opened the folder. "But before we dive into the numbers and the legal details, I need to tell you something Marcus made me promise to tell you." "What's that?" Jerome pulled out a sealed letter, another one from Marcus. "He wrote this one specifically after you met with me. He wanted you to have all the facts first, then hear this." With shaking hands, I opened the envelope. Marcus's handwriting again. "Ma, if you're reading this in Jerome's office, it means you're ready to fight. Good. Because I need you to understand something. All of this, every property, every investment, every dollar,
It's not just money. It's our story. It's every sacrifice you made. It's every lesson you taught me. It's proof that we won, Ma. We beat the odds. But here's what I need you to remember. Jasmine isn't evil. She's lost. She grew up with money and never learned what it means to work for something. Her parents gave her everything, and that's why she values nothing. If she betrays you, and I hope she doesn't, but if she does, don't destroy her, Ma. Teach her the way you taught me, the way you taught every young nurse who came through Mount Sinai scared and uncertain. You have the power now to do whatever you want. You could ruin her with one phone call, but that's not who you are. That's not who I raised you to be. Wait, that came out wrong. That's not who you raised me to be, which made me understand who you are. Teach her, Ma. Let her fall. Let her understand what it means to have nothing. And then, when she's ready, when she's humble, when she's learned, be there for her the way you were always there for me. Because that's what real power is, Ma. Not revenge, redemption. I love you always. Marcus. I had to set the letter down. Tears were streaming down my face, and I didn't care who saw them. Jerome handed me a box of tissues. He was something special, your son. He was everything. I wiped my eyes. So what do we do now? Now, Mrs. Hayes, we take inventory of exactly what you own. Then we recover what was stolen. And then, Jerome smiled, then we teach your daughter-in-law a lesson she'll never forget. For the next 3 hours, Jerome walked me through everything. Every property, every investment, every account. The numbers were staggering. Marcus hadn't just been successful. He'd been brilliant.
The total liquid assets, meaning cash and stocks you can access immediately, is approximately $4.7 million, Jerome said. The real estate holdings are worth approximately $23 million, though that's conservative. Some of these properties are in rapidly appreciating neighborhoods. In 5 years, you could be looking at $40 million or more. I had to grip the arms of my chair. Say that again? You're worth roughly $28 million, Mrs. Hayes. You're a very wealthy woman. $28 million? I'd spent 30 years making $55,000 a year as a nurse, proud of every paycheck, and my son had turned our sacrifices into generational wealth. And Jasmine has no idea? None. Marcus put the brownstone and the Cadillac in smaller shell companies worth maybe $200,000 total. That's all she thinks exists. She has no knowledge of Marion's Legacy LLC or any of the major holdings. So what she sold represents less than 1% of your actual wealth. But here's the important part, Mrs. Hayes. What she did is still fraud. She forged documents to sell properties she didn't own. We can have her arrested today if you want. I don't want her arrested. Jerome looked surprised. You don't? Not yet, anyway. First, I want to understand something. Where is she right now? Jerome pulled up something on his computer. According to social media we've been monitoring, and yes, that's legal when fraud is involved, she and Deshawn are currently in Atlanta looking at condos, expensive ones. They're planning to use the money from the sales to start a consulting business. He said consulting business the way you might say snake oil sales. How much money did they get from the fraudulent sales? About $180,000. The brownstone buyer paid $120,000 for a quick cash sale, way under market value. The Cadillac went for $60,000. Both buyers thought they were getting incredible deals. And when they find out the sales were fake, they'll demand their money back immediately. Jasmine and Deshawn will have maybe a week before lawyers start calling, 2 weeks before the police get involved. I sat back in that comfortable leather chair and thought about Marcus's letter. Teach her, he'd said. Let her fall. Jerome, here's what I want to do.
I want you to quietly nullify those sales, get the properties back, compensate the buyers fairly. They didn't do anything wrong. But I don't want Jasmine to know yet that the sales were fraudulent. You want her to think she got away with it? For now? How long will it take to recover everything? 2 weeks, maybe 3. Perfect. In the meantime, I want you to monitor her accounts. I want to know exactly how she spends that money. Every dollar. Jerome smiled, a knowing smile. You're setting a trap. I'm teaching a lesson. There's a difference. Your son would be proud, Mrs. Hayes, very proud. Now, there's one more thing we need to discuss. The building where Jasmine currently lives. The one I own? Exactly. Her lease is up for renewal next month. As the building owner, you have the right to choose whether or not to renew. You also have the right to review her payment history. And she's 3 months behind on rent. $15,000 in arrears. Marcus had instructed the property manager not to pursue it while he was alive, said he'd handle it personally. But now you're the landlord, and you have every legal right to begin eviction proceedings. The irony was perfect. Jasmine had sold my properties to fund her new life, and she didn't even know she was living in a building I owned in an apartment she couldn't afford. Don't file eviction yet, but send her a notice about the late rent, a formal one. Let's see what she does. Mrs. Hayes, can I say something? Of course. In 30 years of practicing law, I've seen a lot of wealthy people. Some inherited it, some earned it. But I've never seen anyone handle sudden wealth with as much grace and wisdom as you're showing right now. Marcus told me you were special. He was right. I'm not special, Jerome. I'm just a mother who learned the hard way that sometimes the people we love need to learn hard lessons too. We spent another hour going over details, signing documents that gave me full access to all the accounts, and planning the next steps. By the time I left Jerome's office, it was almost 3 p.m. I walked out of that building a different woman than the one who'd walked in. I was still Marion Hayes, still the same person who raised Marcus in that 2-bedroom apartment, but now I understood something I didn't before. Power isn't about money. Power is about choices. And for the first time in 6 months, I had the power to choose how this story ended. I took the subway home, and when I got back to my apartment, there was a message on my answering machine. Jasmine's voice, excited, almost giddy. Marion, it's me. I just wanted you to know, Deshawn and I found the perfect place in Atlanta, a penthouse. Can you believe it? We're putting down a deposit tomorrow. I know things ended badly between us, but I hope you understand this is for the best. You were always so simple in your needs. You'll be fine. Anyway, I've got to go. Our realtor is waiting. Bye. Simple in my needs. That's what she called me. I sat down on my floral couch, looked around at my humble apartment, and I smiled. Oh, Jasmine, I said to the empty room, you have no idea what's coming. 2 weeks passed, and I watched everything unfold exactly as Jerome predicted. First, the brownstone buyer called Jasmine. I knew because Jerome had legal monitoring on her phone due to the fraud case. The conversation was beautiful. Ms. Hayes, this is Robert Chen. I purchased the Harlem property from you 2 weeks ago. Yes, Mr. Chen. Is everything okay? No, everything is not okay. I just received notification from a company called Marion's Legacy LLC, claiming they're the actual owners. They say my purchase was fraudulent. Silence on Jasmine's end. Then, that's impossible. I had full authority to sell that property. Well, the lawyers seem to disagree. They're offering to return my $120,000, but Miss Hayes, if you sold me property you didn't own, that's fraud. I'm going to need my money back immediately, or I'm contacting the police. I'll handle this. Give me 48 hours. But she didn't have 48 hours. The next day, the Cadillac buyer called with the same story. Then, Jerome sent the formal notice about her unpaid rent. $15,000 due immediately or face eviction proceedings. I was sitting in Jerome's office when he played me the voicemail she left for Deshawn. Her voice was panicked, nothing like the cold confidence from 2 weeks ago. "Baby, something's wrong. Both buyers want their money back. They're saying the sales were illegal. And I just got an eviction notice from our building. Deshawn, we put the deposit on the Atlanta penthouse. We spent $50,000 on furniture. We only have $130,000 left, and we owe $195,000 to get out of this mess. What are we going to do?" Jerome stopped the recording. "Deshawn hasn't returned her calls in 3 days. We tracked his phone to Miami Beach. He's with another woman." "He left her?" "Took $80,000 from their joint account and disappeared. Jasmine is alone in Atlanta, with not enough money to fix what she broke." I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt something closer to sadness. This was exactly what Marcus had predicted, that Jasmine would choose the wrong man and destroy herself in the process. "What happens now?" I asked. "She'll come back to New York. She has no choice. She can't pay back the buyers, can't cover the rent, can't afford the Atlanta penthouse. Within a week, she'll be desperate." "And then?" "Then, Mrs. Hayes, she'll probably come to you." Jerome was right. 5 days later, my phone rang at 11 p.m. It was Jasmine, and she was crying. Marion, are you there?" "I'm here, baby. What's wrong?" Everything's wrong. Deshawn left me. The property sales fell through. I'm being evicted. I don't have anywhere to go." She was sobbing now, real tears. "Marion, I know I don't deserve it, but can I come stay with you just for a little while until I figure things out?" This was the moment. I could tell her the truth right now. Tell her I owned everything. Tell her I'd been watching her whole world fall apart. Tell her that every bit of suffering was her own doing. But that's not what Marcus would have wanted. "Of course, baby. This is your home. It'll always be your home." "Really? After everything I did to you?" "Your family. Family doesn't abandon family." She cried harder. "I'll be there tomorrow. Thank you, Marion. Thank you." After I hung up, I called Jerome. "She's coming back. She'll be here tomorrow." "Are you sure you want to do this, Mrs. Hayes? Let her live with you while she still doesn't know the truth?" "I'm sure. Marcus said to teach her, not destroy her. She needs to hit bottom first. Real bottom. Then she needs to climb back up. That's the only way she'll learn." "You're a better woman than most, Mrs. Hayes." "No, Jerome. I'm just a mother who understands that some lessons can only be learned the hard way." Jasmine arrived the next afternoon with 2 suitcases and a broken spirit. She looked terrible, hair uncombed, eyes red and swollen, wearing the same clothes she'd probably had on for days. "Marion," she whispered when I opened the door. And then she just collapsed into my arms, crying like a child. I held her. What else could I do? This was Marcus's wife, the woman he loved, the woman he'd hoped would learn to be better. "Come inside, baby. Let's get you cleaned up." Over the next few days, I watched Jasmine try to rebuild her life from nothing. She called lawyers, but couldn't afford their fees. She applied for jobs, but with fraud investigations pending, nobody would hire her. She tried to reach Deshaun, but his number was disconnected. She'd hit bottom. One night, about a week after she'd moved in, she sat with me at the kitchen table. She'd made dinner, badly, but she'd tried, and we were eating together in silence. "Marion," she finally said, "I need to tell you something." "What's that, baby?" "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what I did to you. You raised Marcus. You loved him. And when he died, instead of taking care of you like he would have wanted, I robbed you. I took everything and treated you like you were nothing." Tears rolled down her face. "And the worst part is I did it for a man who didn't even love me, who just wanted money." "Why did you do it, Jasmine?" She wiped her eyes. "Because I was scared. Marcus left me and I didn't know how to survive without him. My parents cut me off years ago when I married him. They said he wasn't good enough because he came from nothing. So when he died, I panicked, and Deshaun, he told me you had money hidden, that Marcus had told him about properties. He said we deserved it more than you because we were younger, had more life to live." "And you believed him?" "I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe there was an easy way out, that I could just take what I needed and start over." She looked at me. "But there is no easy way, is there?" "No, baby, there's not. I don't know what I'm going to do, Marion. I owe people $195,000. I have about $40,000 left. I'm facing fraud charges. My life is over." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Your life isn't over, Jasmine, but your old life is. And maybe that's exactly what needed to happen." She squeezed my hand. "How are you so kind to me after everything?" "Because that's what Marcus would have wanted, and because everybody deserves a chance to make things right." That night, after Jasmine went to bed in Marcus's old room, I called Jerome. "It's time," I said. "Time for what, Mrs. Hayes?" "Time to show her the truth." I told Jasmine we had an appointment downtown the next morning. I didn't tell her where or why. She didn't ask many questions anymore. The fight had gone out of her. We took the subway together to Midtown. She sat quietly beside me, staring at her reflection in the dark window. She'd lost weight. Her expensive clothes hung loose on her frame. "Marion, where are we going?" she finally asked as we walked toward Jerome's building. "To see a lawyer. Someone who can help you." "I can't afford a lawyer. I told you that." "This one's already paid for." She looked confused, but followed me into the marble lobby, into the elevator, up to the 34th floor. Jerome was waiting in his office. He stood when we entered, extending his hand to Jasmine. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm Jerome Richardson. I was your husband's attorney." Jasmine shook his hand weakly. "I don't understand. Marcus's lawyer? But I thought all of his affairs were settled." "Not all of them," Jerome said, gesturing for us to sit. "There are some things that Marcus wanted handled in a very specific way. Mrs. Hayes, Marion, asked me to wait until the time was right." "The time for what?" Jerome looked at me. I nodded. "Jasmine," I said softly, "Marcus left me something. Something important. Something you didn't know about." "What do you mean?" Jerome slid a folder across the desk. These are the property holdings of Marion's Legacy LLC, a company your husband created and put entirely in his mother's name. Jasmine opened the folder. I watched her eyes move across the pages. Confusion at first, then shock, then something like horror. This is Marion owns 12 buildings? The brownstone I sold, the building we live in, properties in Brooklyn, the Bronx? Her voice got smaller. This can't be right. It's all accurate, Jerome said. Your husband spent 15 years building this portfolio. He put it all in his mother's name for protection. Protection from what? From situations exactly like this, I said quietly. Jasmine looked at me and I saw the moment understanding hit her. You knew when I sold the brownstone. You already knew you owned it. I found out the day you called me. And the Cadillac? Mine. The building where we lived, where I'm being evicted from? I'm your landlord, Jasmine. She stood up so fast her chair fell backward. You let me? You watched me struggle for weeks knowing you could have stopped it all with one phone call? Yes. Why? Why would you do that to me? I stood up too. Because Marcus asked me to. Because you needed to learn something you couldn't learn any other way. Jerome quietly picked up Jasmine's chair and left the room, giving us privacy. Learn what? Jasmine's voice was shaking. That you're cruel? That you wanted revenge? No, baby. That actions have consequences. That you can't build a life on someone else's suffering. That character matters more than money. So this was all a game to you, watching me lose everything? You didn't lose everything, Jasmine. You lost money. There's a difference. She stared at me, tears streaming down her face. I don't understand. Sit down, let me tell you a story. Slowly, she sat. I sat across from her. When I was pregnant with Marcus, his father left me, said he wasn't ready to be a daddy. I was 19 years old, working at McDonald's, living in my mama's basement. I had nothing, less than nothing. I leaned forward. But you know what I did have? I had pride. I had determination. I had the knowledge that my baby deserved better than what I had. Marion, I let him finish. I worked 3 jobs while I was pregnant. I got my nursing assistant certification, then my LPN, then my RN. It took me 12 years, but I did it. And every step of the way, I taught Marcus that nothing worth having comes easy, that respect is earned, not given. I know Marcus respected you, but you didn't. When he died, you saw me as an obstacle, someone who had things you wanted. You never once asked me how I was doing, if I needed anything, if I was okay. Jasmine's face crumbled. You're right. I'm so sorry. I know you are, but sorry isn't enough, baby. You have to change. You have to become someone who earns what she has, not takes it. How do I do that? I've ruined everything. I pulled out another folder Jerome had left on the desk. This is documentation showing that you acted under Deshawn's manipulation. He convinced you the properties were his to sell. With this evidence, Jerome can get the fraud charges dropped. What? How? Because I told him to find a way. Because I don't want you to go to prison, Jasmine. I want you to do better. She stared at the folder like it might disappear. Why would you help me? Because you're still my daughter-in-law. Because Marcus loved you. And because I believe people can change when they're given the right motivation. What kind of motivation? The kind that comes from hitting rock bottom and having someone offer you a hand up. Not a hand out, but a hand up. Here's what's going to happen. Jerome is going to clear your legal troubles. I'm going to pay back the buyers who got caught in your mess. They didn't do anything wrong. Marian, I can't accept. I'm not finished. You're going to stay living with me. You're going to get a job, a real job, something that teaches you the value of hard work. You're going to pay me rent. Not much, but enough that you feel it. And you're going to go back to school. School? For what? Marcus told me you used to want to be a social worker before your parents talked you into business school, before you married money instead of love. What happened to that dream? Jasmine looked down at her hands. I gave up on it. My parents said it wouldn't make enough money. So now you're going to choose what matters to you, not what matters to them. You're going to help people who are struggling like you struggled. And maybe, just maybe, you're going to find out who Jasmine really is when money isn't the goal. She was crying again, but different tears this time. I don't deserve this. No, you don't. But Marcus believed in second chances. So do I. Jerome came back into the room. Ladies, are we good? We're good, I said. Draw out the papers to clear Jasmine's legal issues. And Jerome, thank you. My pleasure, Mrs. Hayes. On the subway ride home, Jasmine sat close to me, her head almost on my shoulder. Marian, she said quietly. Yes, baby? Why didn't you just kick me out? Why go through all this? I thought about Marcus's letter, about his request to teach, not destroy. Because that's not what family does, Jasmine. Real family doesn't abandon people when they fall. Real family catches them, but makes sure they learn to stand on their own. She took my hand. I'm going to make you proud, I promise. Don't make me proud, baby. Make yourself proud.
3 months passed, and I watched Jasmine transform in ways I never expected. She got a job at a community center in Harlem, helping families apply for housing assistance. The pay was $42,000 a year, nothing like what she'd had before, but she came home every day with stories about the people she'd helped. Marian, you should have seen Mrs. Thompson's face when I told her we got our application approved, she said one evening, sitting at my kitchen table with her laptop. She's been homeless for 6 months, 6 months with 3 kids, and now she's getting an apartment. That's beautiful work you're doing, baby. It doesn't feel like work. It feels like I'm finally doing something that matters. She enrolled in a social work master's program at Hunter College, night classes, 2 evenings a week. She'd study at my kitchen table until midnight, surrounded by textbooks about trauma-informed care and community development. And she paid rent. Every month on the 1st, she'd hand me $800 in cash for groceries, utilities, and my room, she'd say. I didn't need the money, but she needed to pay it. One Saturday, she asked if she could invite some coworkers over for dinner. I want them to meet you, she said. I've told them all about you. What did you tell them? That you're the strongest woman I know, that you taught me what real wealth looks like. That dinner was one of the happiest nights I'd had since Marcus died. Jasmine cooked. She'd been taking cooking lessons from YouTube videos, and 5 young women from her job came over. They were all different colors, different backgrounds, but they all had the same fire in their eyes that I remembered from my own nursing days. Mrs. Hayes, Jasmine talks about you all the time. She says you worked as a nurse for 30 years while raising a son by yourself. I did what I had to do. That's what she says too, that you taught her about doing what you have to do, not what's easy. After they left, Jasmine helped me clean up the dishes. Thank you for tonight, she said. For what? You did all the cooking. For giving me a chance to be proud of something,
for letting me have friends over to a home I'm helping to maintain, for treating me like I'm worth something even after I treated you like nothing. I dried a plate slowly. Jasmine, can I ask you something? Anything. Are you happy? Really happy? Not pretending, not performing. Are you happy? She thought about it. You know what? I am. I'm happier than I was in that penthouse with Deshaun, happier than I was buying expensive things I didn't need. I'm tired all the time. I'm broke most of the time, but I'm happy. That's real wealth, baby. I'm starting to understand that. But not everything was perfect. One night, about 4 months after the truth came out, I found Jasmine crying in Marcus's old room. "What's wrong?" I asked from the doorway. "I miss him. I miss him so much, Marian. And the worst part is I wasted so much of our time together worrying about money, about status, about impressing people who didn't matter. I can't get those years back." I sat beside her on the bed. "No, you can't. But you can honor them by being the person he believed you could be." Did he know? Did Marcus know that I had these problems? He knew you struggled with it. That's why he protected his money the way he did. But he also believed you could change. That's why he asked me to teach you, not punish you. I don't deserve his faith in me. Then earn it. Every day, with every choice you make, earn it. She wiped her eyes. "I went to see Deshaun last week." "That surprised me." "You did?" "He's back in New York, working at a car wash in Queens. All the money's gone. He spent it on that woman in Miami, and she left him when it ran out." Jasmine shook her head. "He wanted to get back together, said we could start over." "What did you tell him?" "I told him I already started over, with someone who actually cares about me, with you." My heart swelled. "You said that?" "I did. And Marian, I meant it. You've been more of a family to me these past 4 months than my own parents were my whole life, more than Deshaun ever was. You're teaching me how to be a person worth being." We sat together in Marcus's room, surrounded by his things, and for the first time since he died, it didn't feel like a shrine to grief. It felt like a reminder of what was possible when you lived with integrity. The next week, Jerome called me with news. "Mrs. Hayes, I wanted to update you on the foundation paperwork. Everything is filed. The Marian and Marcus Hayes Foundation for Women's Empowerment is officially a nonprofit." "That's wonderful, Jerome. And I have to say, using the properties to create affordable housing for women leaving domestic violence situations, it's exactly what Marcus would have wanted." Jasmine had helped me plan it. We were converting 3 of the buildings into transitional housing, places where women could stay while they rebuilt their lives, just like Jasmine was doing. "There's one more thing," Jerome said. "The board needs a director, someone to run the day-to-day operations. I was thinking—" "Jasmine," I interrupted. "Exactly. She's got the education now, the passion, the personal experience. And Mrs. Hayes, I've watched her these past months. She's not the same woman who walked into my office last year." "No, she's not." That night, I offered Jasmine the position. She stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. "You want me to run your foundation?" "Our foundation. Marcus's and mine, and now yours." "Marian, I can't." "Yes, you can. You've been training for this without even knowing it. Every family you help at the community center, every class you take, every time you choose to do what's right instead of what's easy, you've been preparing." What if I mess it up? Then we fix it together. That's what family does. She hugged me then, really hugged me, and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for not giving up on yourself."
1 year after that phone call that changed everything, Jasmine and I stood together at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the first Marion and Marcus Hayes Transitional Housing Facility. The building on Malcolm X Boulevard had been transformed. What was once just rental units was now a safe haven for 20 women and their children. Each apartment came furnished with child care support, job training, and counseling services. "Miss Hayes, would you like to say a few words?" the local councilwoman asked, handing me the microphone. I looked out at the crowd, neighbors, politicians, the women who would be moving into the building next week, and I saw Jasmine standing off to the side, beaming with pride. "A year ago," I began, "I thought I'd lost everything. My son had passed away, and I felt alone in this world. But I learned something important. You can't lose what really matters: character, faith, the ability to get back up when life knocks you down." I saw some of the women in the crowd nodding. My son Marcus built something beautiful with his life. Not just buildings or bank accounts, but a legacy of caring for others. And today we're continuing that legacy. Every woman who walks through these doors will be treated with dignity and respect, because that's what my son would have wanted. That's what we all deserve. The crowd applauded. Jasmine cut the ribbon, and we toured the building together. In one apartment, a young mother named Keisha was moving in with her 2 daughters. "Thank you, Miss Hayes," Keisha said, tears in her eyes. "I don't know what this means. I've been staying in shelters for 8 months. I think I do know. We've all been somewhere we didn't want to be. The important thing is moving forward." After the ceremony, Jasmine and I went to the cemetery. We hadn't been together since the funeral, but she'd asked if we could visit Marcus's grave. We stood there in the afternoon sun, looking at the headstone. Marcus Elijah Hayes, beloved son and husband, builder of dreams. "I talk to him sometimes," Jasmine said quietly. "Is that weird?" "Not at all. I talk to him every day." "What do you tell him?" "That I'm trying to make him proud, that I'm doing my best with what he left me." I looked at her. "What do you tell him?" "That I'm sorry I didn't appreciate him when he was here, that I didn't see what real love looked like until it was too late." She wiped her eyes. "And I tell him, thank you for giving me a second chance, through you, for loving me enough to teach me even from beyond the grave." We stood there for a while, not talking. Then Jasmine said, "Marion, there's something I need to tell you." "What's that, baby?" "My parents called last week. They heard about the foundation, about the work I'm doing. They want to meet with me." "How do you feel about that?" "Conflicted. They cut me off when I married Marcus because he came from nothing. Now that they think I'm connected to money again, suddenly they want a relationship." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to meet them, but not because of what they want, because I want to show them who I've become. I want them to see that their daughter finally grew up, no thanks to them." "That's my girl. And Marion, I want you to come with me. I want them to meet the woman who actually raised me to be someone worth being." 2 weeks later, we sat in a restaurant in Manhattan with Jasmine's parents. Her father, Bernard, wore an expensive suit. Her mother, Patricia, had on enough jewelry to fund 3 of our apartments.
Jasmine, darling, you look so different, Patricia said. The word different, dripping with disappointment. I am different, Mother. I'm better. We heard you're working in social services now. Surely you could do better than that with your education. I am doing better, Father. I'm helping people, making a real difference in the world. Patricia turned to me. And you must be Marcus's mother. We're so sorry for your loss. He was a very enterprising young man. I smiled politely. He was a good man who taught me that wealth isn't about what you have, but what you do with it. Yes, well, about that, Bernard leaned forward. We heard you're starting some kind of charitable foundation. If you need investors or board members. We don't, Jasmine interrupted. Marcus and I have everything we need. Jasmine, be reasonable, Patricia said. Your father and I have connections that could really expand your little project. It's not a project, Mother. It's a mission, and we're not interested in your connections or your money. Bernard's face reddened. Young lady, that's no way to speak to your mother. You're right. Let me be clearer. Jasmine stood up. For years, you taught me that the only thing that mattered was status and money, that people were only valuable if they could do something for you. That's why you hated Marcus, because he came from a working-class family. Jasmine. But Marcus taught me something different through Marion. He taught me that real wealth is about character, about sacrifice, about building something that outlasts you. And Marion has shown me how to live that truth every single day. I stood up beside her, putting my hand on her shoulder. So thank you for the offer, but we don't need your help. We have everything we need. We have each other. We walked out of that restaurant together, and I heard Jasmine laugh, really laugh for the first time in months. How do you feel? I asked. Free. I feel free.
6 months later, the foundation had expanded to 3 buildings. Jasmine had hired a staff of 5, all women who'd once been in the situations we were helping others escape. One evening, we were working late in the foundation office, a small space we'd set up in one of the buildings. Jasmine was reviewing applications, and I was looking at budgets. Marion, look at this one, Jasmine said, handing me a paper. This woman, Crystal, she's been in 4 different shelters in 6 months, 3 kids, escaping domestic violence. She's exactly who we built this for. Approve it. Already did, Jasmine smiled. You know what I love most about this work? What's that? Every woman we help is like a mirror. I see myself in them, the fear, the uncertainty, the shame of needing help, but I also see the possibility, the chance to become someone new. You did become someone new, baby. You became the person you were always meant to be. She looked at me with those eyes that had once been hard and calculating, but were now soft and genuine. I couldn't have done it without you, without your patience, your wisdom, your willingness to see past what I did to who I could become. That's what Marcus saw in you too. That's why he loved you. I wish I could tell him I finally understand, that I finally get it. He knows, baby. Trust me, he knows. That night, walking home through Harlem, I thought about the journey we'd been on, about the phone call that started it all, about the pain and the teaching and the slow, difficult work of transformation. Jasmine had moved into her own apartment now, one she could actually afford on her director's salary, but she still came by 3 times a week for dinner, and we still talked every day. She wasn't the same woman who'd sold my properties and abandoned me, and I wasn't the same woman who'd wanted revenge. We'd both learned something Marcus had known all along, that real power isn't about money or control. It's about love that's strong enough to let people fall
and grace that's strong enough to help them rise. My phone rang as I reached my building. It was Jasmine. "Marian, I forgot to tell you, Crystal got the apartment. She's moving in next week with her kids." "That's wonderful news." "And Marian, thank you for everything, for being the mother I needed even when I didn't deserve it." "You always deserved it, baby. You just had to learn to see your own worth." After we hung up, I stood on my stoop looking up at the Harlem sky, the same sky Marcus had looked at as a child, dreaming of a better life for both of us. "We did it, baby. We taught her, just like you asked." And somewhere, I knew my son was smiling.